I want to lay down my concept for this because I think the way I want to run this episode is not so much with videos, because I think videos are more likely to get us in trouble, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially with kids running around in all kinds of costumes, and I want to be able to control whether faces are displayed or not. So,
plus, I just really don't want to see it. You know?
Yeah. And I think even on our own, on your own computers, you can look up pictures if you need a reference point, honestly. But I think we can all imagine.
No, thank you.
No.
Yeah, watching
we all
what we're
understand.
talking about is not easy on the eyes. So
I think we all understand the concept. So
yeah.
But instead, I have those discussion questions that I had posted in the chat. And I think we can walk through those or talk through them a bit. And when necessary, I'll put up still pictures and images with faces blurred out if necessary. So I guess let's do intros. So welcome, everyone. It is another episode of 3 Homos and a Pussy. And just quick shout out. What's your favorite RuPaul episode? Go.
God damn you!
God
damn Calf.
I like when he's the Christian conversion camp leader in the "But I'm a Cheerleader" movie.
Oh, nice. I like the one where they went to, I think it was Rio de Janeiro. I don't remember much from it, but I remember it funny.
You were watching that when you were like 6, right? Your favorite show?
No, 4, actually.
Oh, 4.
Well, I can say, speaking as a traditionalist Catholic AA enthusiast,
that you would lick the drag queen abs?
No, I was gonna say that
they're very muscular people.
Okay, let's.
Now he's thinking about it.
Rephrase what I was gonna say. Well, speaking as a 100% traditionalist Catholic, not non-tomboy enjoyer of traditional gender roles, I cannot say anything in support, and I can only rain down fire and brimstone upon these the godless sodomites that are the subject of today's discussion. In case you couldn't tell, that was a joke. So, if anybody finds the use of the phrase "godless sodomites" to be offensive, well, I don't really care. Anyway.
Yeah, whatever, Evola. Go ahead and look into your crystal ball and talk to a ghost, you weirdo.
We should. I have a clip saved. I think I saved it. It's an MP4, and it's just it's 2 seconds long, and it's just Fred Phelps from the Westboro Baptist Church saying, "Good evening, godless sodomites."
That sounds great. That should be our new opening. What are we talking about?
We should go on.
That's amazing.
Do you think he'd be having fun right now if he was still alive, Fred Phelps? I think he would really enjoy.
Yeah, look at this. You see, I told you. I told you.
Oh yeah, he would love seeing I told you so. That would be the greatest gift you could ever give Fred Phelps.
Slippery slope was real. But indeed, so the topic of our discussion, and it's going to be more discussion than media this time. It's going to be more maybe a traditional podcast, just 4 people pontificating on a topic. We were talking about drag kids, and it's a sensitive topic, so we're going to be, I think, more careful, though hopefully somewhat inflammatory at the same time. I don't know if we can walk those 2 lines, but maybe we can. And I have generated some discussion questions that we'll work our way through to kind of guide this discussion about what this all means. It's a fairly recent phenomenon as far as I can tell. Does anyone know of this very early on?
No, I've never. I mean, and I wouldn't say I'm a big member in the gay scene, but I know of it. And no, I don't remember drag kids when I was a kid. Although when I was a kid, being gay wasn't cool.
The person in question, who shall remain unnamed, is now 14. So if we kind of use that as a time reference,
Subject D.
maybe it's been around 15 years, this concept of having a little kid put on women's clothing and strut their stuff.
It's a very euphemistic way to put it, I think.
Yes.
And I want to point out to this is for the audience, the reason there are certain people that we're going to be talking about, but we're not going to refer to them by name, because they're the subjects of a good deal of controversy and videos that discuss them in perhaps a less than stellar light have been targeted and taken down by certain parties who
I think there's a few reasons for that, though. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be naming any names. We are going to be talking about specific people. So that's why we're going to be using pseudonyms, I suppose is the word you use.
Yeah.
But we're not going to. If we do accidentally drop any forbidden names, we'll just bleep them out.
Yep.
I think
we'll do some bleep. I'll do any bleeping I need to later. And yeah, the censorship was what triggered me to think about the whole thing. But I think it is probably proper to just keep the names and faces, I'm going to blur faces, of children out of this video. Because I think it's not really them. There's something else going on.
Can you blur Gabbles' face right now?
Yes. So with that, I think we can start with the first opening question I wanted to ask was, what is drag? This is something that I have basically zero experience with. But what are our impressions of it? What is it? What do we know about it? What are our experiences?
Tenny, you're first up to the plate. Why don't you take it away?
Well, as far as defining what drag is, I guess there are a couple different definitions, but the definition I'm most familiar with is a form of... It's almost like a form of pantomime where someone will wear an exaggerated version of the clothing of the opposite sex. At least that's what it's typically characterized by. Typically, more often you see men wearing women's clothing and makeup, although there are women who wear exaggerated versions of men's clothing, drag kings. And the idea, I guess, is a sort of a performance for entertainment or comedic effect. My first knowledge of it came actually from watching Monty Python's Flying Circus, because Monty Python is an all-male troupe, and British comedy, surprisingly, has a rather prominent history of incorporating cross-dressing and drag into its milieu. It goes all the way far back to even the days of Shakespeare. Women weren't allowed to act on the stage in England until 1644. So for the Elizabethan stage, for pageants and plays and so on, all the female roles famously were supplied by boy actors and young men who would wear women's clothing and perform the roles of Juliet or Catherine or Lady Macbeth or what have you.
Femboy Paradise.
But no, my first exposure to it came in watching Monty Python, because and I will maintain to this day that they're probably some of the best, some of the funniest female impersonators I've ever watched, just because of the parody, the shrill sort of English housewife impressions that they would do.
Here's the thing. Real drag queens are totally into it, and they just have fucking fun with it. They hate that female impersonator stuff. Because I think even RuPaul has said it, I'm not a female impersonator, I'm a fucking drag queen. I don't dress like a woman, I dress like a drag queen. It's a whole separate thing. Yeah, they use the female clothing and female makeup and stuff, but real drag queens fucking hate it when you compare it to female impersonation or that kind of stuff.
It is interesting, and I know there's a lot of politics, especially recently.
Yeah, very recently
in particular, about drag versus trans versus, is it a form of transvesticism? Is that the word?
Well, trannies. I mean, oh my god.
I'm like, that's staying in.
No,
Oh, no.
Tenny. I meant to say Tenny.
That's
fine.
not. This is not the first time that's happened, actually.
Hey, come on now. So, well, Tenny's right. It's a performance art, but it's like it's something that's sexual. It's camp. It's comedic. It's meant to be adult. There's a lot of like big motions, big performance, big makeup, big costumes. It's very camp, very big, colorful. It's a big expression. It's I'm not coming down on drag. There's a lot of things I hate about drag, like about the culture around it and the politics around it, but I mean, in of itself, a performance thing in of itself, just an art form. It's fun. Real fun.
Was that the sound of your head hitting the desk, Tanny?
Gabbles, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I actually agree mostly with Danimal. It's a variety show with like a lot of raunchy humor and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a freaking blast.
I don't really see the comparison to women really, because it's a whole different like expression of gender. Like, yeah, it's drag. It's not a parody of a woman. It's its whole different thing. Like a drag king is not a parody of a man. It's a parody of a parody of a parody of a man. Like it's gone so meta that it's its own animal. It's also fun and not for kids.
What
It's
is
not a
it?
family
Is it?
friendly affair.
And it's usually targeted. It would be a man in drag targeted at other gay men. Is that who you would be typically performing for?
Yeah, usually it's at like gay bars, gay clubs. I mean, it was never really a thing that I think was meant to be part of the mainstream. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't meant for mass consumption. It's a very kind of like letting off steam kind of thing. Very much within like, I don't know. You know what? There is kind of a gay culture, and it's very much an expression of that too. I mean, it's just there's a lot of catharsis, I guess, and those kinds of performances, and going to a club like that with people that are like you to watch a show like that. I mean, that's kind of. I don't think it was ever meant to be out there like it is nowadays.
Seems to be a pattern.
Yeah.
The LGBT community. Things that weren't supposed to be for mass consumption are now for mass consumption.
Yeah,
Well, yes.
I think
Yeah.
in the instances when you did see drag outside of a gay setting, it was usually in comedy.
Yeah, like Monty Python, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
Or the Muppet Show, because I remember there was an episode of the Muppet Show that I watched when I was a kid, and there's a scene where they were talking about a sketch they wanted to do, and Gonzo says, "But Kermit, female impersonation is great art." And I'm actually thinking to myself, whether did Gonzo actually cross-dress in the Muppet Show? Did he do drag as a comedy thing?
Well, we
Yeah,
now
I'm
know
pretty
he's
sure, right?
non-binary
Right,
or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, Gonzo was famously into chicks. Oh yes.
I love it.
So,
what
Danimal,
else
I
is
think
there?
you told me earlier that you had a drag story.
Oh yeah, a bar I used to go to. It was very cool. They had retro game machines all lined up against the wall. And when I say retro, I mean like Burger Time, Asteroids, like all like kind of classic arcade machines. And they'd have a night called Beat the Bitch, where there was a drag queen there, and if you could beat, and usually when you're speaking of a drag queen, you say her for some reason. I always say he. I don't know. I guess that's faux pas. I don't really know. But if you beat him at an arcade machine, you got a free drink. So I drank for free on Burger Time a few times because I'm great at Burger Time.
It's a good deal.
Yeah.
Anybody else have drag stories? I don't participate.
The bar I usually go to is across from the new gay bar in town, and it's
Ugh.
so loud when they have drag night and drag bingo that we can just hear everything over to where we're sitting, like outside, smoking and drinking.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You guys in your black European turtlenecks, sitting cross-legged, sipping your small cups of coffee and smoking your super long cigarettes, just scoffing at the new gays across the
They
street.
have the black berets. And the...
It's a really like super hipster place as well.
Oh my god.
They have hundreds of beer on tap. I'm not helping the situation.
No, you're
It's like,
not.
I'll have 100 beers, please.
You know,
Okay.
you guys.
This is where I start to get spicy. So here we go.
Oh boy.
Why is it that I see drag being used as an LGBT ambassador to children? So the examples I have in mind, the Nickelodeon Pride Month animation.
Ugh.
I think they even had like a Cartoon Network where like a drag queen was on screen saying it's Pride Month, everybody. And then you have Drag Queen Story Hour, which has had some disastrous incidents that I'm sure we're all aware of. So why is it drag that's being used?
I think one reason might be because it's colorful and shiny, and as we all know, you can distract children by dangling keys in front of their face. And I think this is a thing that a lot of kids media tends to do. Tends to focus a lot on bright colors and noise and superficial stuff to get kids' attention. Like even educational stuff, like educational, like Little Einsteins will have like bright colors, especially primary colors. Music that's easy and repetitive, and it partially is because that stuff, I guess, gets kids' attention, especially little really young kids, and helps them at least sometimes learn certain things, like learn new words or learn how to write properly. It's the same reason why, at kindergarten or preschool, you give kids a box of crayons and a coloring book. Why kids like coloring books, kids like finger painting. It's colorful, it's bright, it gets their attention. And it gets their attention and lets them focus on something.
I think the gays are trying to take the kids away. Run. I think it's the gays coming for the kids.
We have the song, right?
Oh no, God.
Oh no, don't play the song, no.
Don't play the song. You can play the song.
Oh, you don't like the song? Come on, a bunch of gays produced it.
For your children.
I prefer
Including
songs,
gays who are on lists.
So scary.
I prefer songs made by people who are not sex offenders.
No, but
Oh, you don't have much music to listen to then, do you?
Oh yeah. Shit.
You better throw out those Gary Glitter CDs.
Well, at least Jimmy Savile never released an album that I liked.
No, you know what I think? I think it's just the misplaced diversity crowd. Because you know what? If they want to get the diversity in there, how do you show that someone's gay? You're not just going to plop somebody like me in there, a normal Midwestern man in a football jersey and sweatpants, and be like, "Hey, kids, what's going on?" Like you're gonna get like the most visibly gay person that exists, and that's a drag queen. You can look at a drag queen and be like, "That is a gay man." You can't look at somebody like me and be like, "That's a gay man."
Yeah,
and I think that's part of the reason why they chose drag queen. Another reason is, once again, like Tenny was saying, entertainment media, and it's beyond just children's media. Anything that's bright and colorful and loud gets attention.
I think that's sort of why up until recently, a lot of depictions of gay guys were like flaming, either flaming or innuendos a lot of the time, because that's just, you look at that and you immediately think, oh, he's gay,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an easy way to show that somebody's gay is to have them act super flamboyant and fabulous.
Yeah. You have a choice between, on the one hand, like a drag queen like RuPaul, or on the other hand, you get Smithers, who is the butt of like so many obvious gay jokes. Well, obvious
hilarious jokes.
You see that extremely often when it comes to this very progressive, very diversity-heavy media, is where they will rely on stereotypes to carry a character.
And
I think it makes sense if your aim is at children. Stereotypes are a very useful shorthand. because
Yeah.
it's not as if you can put a person on screen who looks regular and say, "Hi, I'm a gay man. Like, I'm attracted to men." Kids aren't gonna really process that exactly. They might,
Yeah.
but they might not.
Depends on how old they are, because most kids don't know what, romantic or sexual attraction is. Like, they don't understand it in the way
Like,
that
hey, I like to have
older
sex with
kids and
dudes.
adults will understand. Yeah, like
You're not gonna
kids aren't going to understand what that is. And if they do understand, they're probably going to be either traumatized or revolted by it. Honestly, like if you went like that, just goes for talking about those kinds of things in general, regardless of whether the person is gay or straight or whatever, right? Like, you guys know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
That you're a bigot.
Oh, well, was that not obvious?
All right, Gabbles, how much of a bigot are you?
I just don't get why you need it, honestly. Like, this is such a strange American thing to have, like, drag queens on Nickelodeon. Like, why? Why isn't it Fairly Odd Parents instead?
Well, they're straight.
The-
They're married to each
Yeah,
other.
but-
No, wait. Are they married to
but
each
why
other?
do you
I don't know
need
the
to-
show.
Yeah, I think they're married to each other, right?
Cosmo and Wanda were married to each other, yeah.
Yeah. They even had a gay guy, the Spanish guy, with the ponytail.
Oh, yeah.
Juanísimo Magnifico.
Yes!
But
No,
yeah, I
I-
mean, like, go ahead,
Why?
Gabbles, I'm sorry.
No, I just don't get why. Why is Drag Queen Story Hour or any of this stuff? Why do you need it?
Because you
But it's
need a
cool.
diversity quota.
Yeah, but why? I don't
I
get
think
it.
I
Why?
think both Tony
How?
and Danimal are right here. I think it's the loudness, the colorful. It's a clown. If you think how clowns work,
Oh my
clowns
god.
put on
Yeah.
a bunch of makeup and they have funny hair and they're
Holy
dressed
shit.
weird and kids
Very
think it's funny and
exaggerated
they're very
behavior.
exaggerated. They're caricatures of just different kinds of people and kids are drawn to that and it's like they're using drag as clowning. It's so bizarre. 'Cause that's not
And
I
they're
don't think
also-
that's really the message you want to send.
They're kind of
LGBT are like these
what makes,
goofy characters.
and it's like people who are super into gay culture and like living like gay lifestyle and everything. They should be pissed that it's all like that because it's really like cheapening drag and what makes drag fun. Like you don't want drag to be kid friendly. That sucks.
And drag isn't
Oh,
a
yeah.
sexuality.
Yeah, it's not a sexuality.
It's a hobby. It's a thing you do as a gay man, typically.
It's a thing you do at a bar while you're drunk or while you're watching somebody and you're drinking. Like that's what makes it fun. Is that like community part of it?
Yeah, it seems to be now that kids are afraid of clowns. They brought in the drag queens.
It's 4D chess. It's to
So-
make kids afraid of gay people.
You're right. soon they're going to be afraid of drag queens.
Oh,
I think
no.
there's-
Mommy.
Fucking solved it.
I think a lot of kids are gonna grow up to be like, yeah, nah, I don't need to be near any gay people. I'm fine.
See, I feel. What if it's
I saw
just a
too
long
much
con
of that
by-
that guy who read us stories at Story Hour. I don't want to
Yeah.
do that again.
Let's.
Little
What
bit of
if it's
flippage.
a long con by Stephen King? Because Stephen King wrote It with Pennywise the Clown, right?
Huh?
Mm.
What if, and then that got a miniseries adaptation and then 2 movie adaptations. What if this is a long con by Stephen King, who for some reason is a massive homophobe, but is able to hide it so well that he funnels all of it into his writing and is an abstract fear of clowns, and he creates villainous representations of clowns that will then scare adults and children away from clowns and drag queens for generations to come.
Here's what I want. I want a scene for scene, line by line, tone for tone remake of It. Both versions, the old one and the new one. But instead of Pennywise, it's a drag queen. That's what I want.
No, it's just Tim
Sounds
Curry
amazing.
and his Doctor. It's Tim Curry and his Dr.
Hey,
Frankenfurter
Come
costume.
on down here.
Hiya, Georgie.
There's all kinds of rides, games down here.
Yeah, but what would a drag queen say? There's all
Come here
kind
down
of
here
ketamine.
for what kind of ketamine down here?
Half shot sugary drinks down here. I've got a cotton candy Cosmo with your name on it.
Do you have Prince Albert in a can? You do? Well, you better let the poor guy out.
Well, we got off track. Let's get back
That's cool.
on track. What was
We
the
can go
question?
there.
Podcast.
Why is drag
Being
being
used.
used as an ambassador to children?
I think we answered
So-
it. So You want to add anything?
Yeah, it's. Well, I just want to kind of hammer home that I want to just restate that I think a lot of it is because of the misplaced, rush progressive ideology to increase diversity and everything, and things that don't really need it. Like Gambles was saying, I mean, Nickelodeon's a network for cartoons. Cartoons aren't supposed to reflect reality or have things that are recognizable in the real world, like maybe for grounding, but they're supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be goofy and colorful and like Looney Tunes.
I think I mentioned this when we talked about the Luca movie.
Yeah.
How it seems nowadays narratives for progressives, all narratives
Which I
must
watched.
serve a purpose. Yes, you watched it, and you were unimpressed
I
with
watched.
it, right?
I was. Did I talk about it in the last podcast?
I don't think you talked about it. You told us
I didn't
in
talk-
chat.
Oh, did I? Yeah, it's totally not a gay story whatsoever. I don't see how you could even get that from that movie. It's clearly just two friends, and
I
one
know
of
how
them
you
is
could.
very.
Porn
Wow.
sickness.
Yes. Yeah, I guess you could. Although I don't know if that would make you see
slash fanfic sickness. Is that a thing?
I don't remember people being sexual around Luca. They just wanted it to be a homosexual romance rather than like sexual stuff. But yeah, I don't see how. I mean, I think people want it because not porn sickness, but they're hopped up on progressive ideology and they want to have something like that so they can applaud it and tweet about it and get likes.
Yeah, all narratives must serve the purpose of pushing a certain ideology or progressing some concept, normalizing something. So I think that might be at the root of it too, this whole drag representation. It's sort of the most extreme physiological thing that you can present to a child to represent LGBT, because even like a trans or a gay person or any of those other things, they're generally fairly normal looking-ish. They're not so obvious just looking at them. But drag queen is in your face. You look at them and you know. So it's to say, we're going to normalize this and everything else will follow. What are drag kids? What is it even? What is that?
Yeah. Why?
Why are
Gabbles,
drag kids?
you want to start?
I don't know. I tried to look like who came up with this idea to put kids in drag, but I stopped clicking at links because I got really fucking uncomfortable because all the articles have like a picture of like some kid in drag, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. This is
So
really wrong.
Are we on question 3?
Yeah.
Let's explore that feeling. Why does a kid in drag make you uncomfortable? Let's kind of target in on that.
Because it's adults only. Like, it's adult humor, it's adult subject matter, it's for adults. Like, kids shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. Drag is very much an adult thing. It's very... I'm not going to say obscene, because it's not obscene, but it's very raunchy.
Sometimes it is.
Can be obscene, but it's usually just very raunchy and not something you would air on daytime TV. Although it's something you air after hours.
Yeah, I mean, it is very much an adult. Like I said, I mean, most of the drag experience is being drunk at a bar with.
And I've noticed in my looking at stuff, these drag kids, as they identify themselves or as their parents identify them, they'll perform at events and stuff, and people are just clapping, and they're going up on stage in very elaborate costumes and doing, I'll say, fairly suggestive dances, or at least somewhat provocative. I don't think I saw anything overtly sexual.
I mean, I would consider drag in itself overtly sexual.
But
yeah.
It does seem to be, in its original form, it was meant to be sexual.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
it's burlesque. It's sort of meant to be outrageous. It's meant to be a little shocking, or maybe a tad indecent, even.
Are people accepting of it to the point that they're applauding it at public events because it's been given such a vaunted status due to like Subject D being on things like Ellen, Oprah, Good Morning America, like all that? Like it was like told this is okay
This is
to a lot of
brave. This is
NPC
amazing.
individuals. Yeah. And this is how you support this downtrodden group of, and we'll get to that in number 5 on our list here, of
Yeah.
the LGBT community, which I have some things to say about. But yeah, it was told to a lot of people that just kind of don't, okay, so being gay is rare. I'm going to assume that most people don't have a gay person in their life that they know personally and talk with often and interact with. So they don't really know, what's, they don't know that we're normal people or that they interact with it. So they're told by these activists that this is how you do it. This is how you support, these gay people, because they're just normal people, just like you. And this is just what they do. It's just part of who they are. And, you show support by supporting this. And it's a drag kid on Good Morning America. And I think a lot of people who don't think deeply eat that up and go, oh, yeah, I'll just follow along. I want to be a good person. I don't want to be a bad person. I want to be a good person. And if I support this, I'm a good person.
Yeah.
It's kind of like dressing your kid up in blackface to show love for the African American community, isn't it?
Yeah. I never thought about it that way, but since you mention it.
Well, you know what I compared it to as I was watching Subject D and others, other kids doing the same kinds of performances and their parents kind of trailing along and people in the public trailing along. I thought about, have you ever seen Toddlers and Tiaras?
Yes, I was gonna say.
It's like the same thing. It's
the same
weirdly
level
involved
of uncomfortable.
parents. Yeah, it's super uncomfortable. You're watching it, you're like, this is sexual. This is adult stuff getting shoved down your pants.
Did you ever see the South Park episode?
Yes.
With the one judge that kept getting taken out.
There was an episode of Always Sunny where that happens too, where Frank agrees to he agrees to do a beauty pageant only to find out that it's a little girl's beauty pageant.
Yeah, man. We gotta definitely write a song about how we do not diddle kids. Do not diddle kids. It's no good diddling kids.
Oh my god.
That's one of my favorite episodes.
But child beauty pageants are an American tradition.
But not a proud one. Not a proud one.
That Toddler and Tiara show is, I think people had a negative reaction to that as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a huge public backlash against that show.
Yeah, because it's if you watch even a single episode, you know that's obviously a lot of the girls don't want to do that. The people that are involved in that the most are the parents who are just they're living vicariously through their like little children.
And even the kids who do want to do it, you get the sense that they're doing it to please their parents and get attention from their parents.
Yeah.
Because they're attention starved.
If you kind of track popular media and things like that, there's always been kind of a streak fairly recently of like child exploitation. Because there was like the Honey Boo Boo thing. There's the Toddlers and Tiaras. There's John and Kate +8, where they have all their kids. There's the Duggar family, where one of the sons ended up raping one of the daughters, and they got that off the air. But yeah, there's the Roloffs, the midget family. Oh, I don't know if I should say the little person family. But yeah, there's been like a streak of kind of child exploitation
in
the name of entertainment.
In the name of entertainment.
Not even just the media, it's like all on TLC. And it makes me wonder if that entire channel, that entire network is just run by abusive perverts or something. Because that's so much of what their shows are made of. It's this weird, like, it's almost always like families and kids, and there's some weird activities that they do. It's almost like it's kind of like Jerry Springer light. Come to think of it, it's the same level of scraping the bottom of the barrel of society, but with obviously less fist fighting. Which, I mean, why bother at that point? The fist fights are the most.
I think we're
part of
even
Jerry
bleeding
Springer.
into the next question. I'll just read off the next question here.
Mm,
What is the psychology at play with the drag kid phenomena?
Yeah,
oh,
because you see, because like all those examples I was talking about previously with kind of child exploitation on the TV and media, and you know what, that's even gone into YouTube too. I mean, there's YouTube channels that follow families around and they just kind of
yeah,
exploit their children in that way.
yeah.
I think there was a big scandal around one of those channels, but anyway, yeah, is it just what are those people that are willing to exploit their children like that? Because that's what I think Subject D is the parent sort of exploiting their child in a way.
Absolutely.
It's just so happens that their child, I think Subject D is probably gay. I don't think that he was raised to be gay. I think that he probably showed
He
gay
does
tendencies.
identify as gay.
Does he? He doesn't identify.
Yeah, at
as
11,
as
there's video of him saying, I sexually identify as gay, which I think is such a
Oof.
weird thing to say at 11.
Ooh.
But
Yeah, I don't think an
Yeah.
11-year-old should use the S word. But I mean, I
we know
don't
he's
think that
been
there's an
coached
issue.
though, and I think a lot of them,
Yeah.
even if you watch videos of them talk, the cadence and the gestures they use,
Mhm.
it's so obviously things they've seen on TV. Or
Yeah.
things they've been taught. No child naturally talks that way.
So
they
are
do
you
like
saying you
the
don't think Subject D is really
sassy.
gay?
He might be, and this is where I think it's tricky to figure out where some of these drag kids fall. Is are they gay, or are some of them being so socially rewarded, so psychologically rewarded with attention that it's
Yeah,
just creating
absolutely.
a feedback loop of I need to exaggerate more. They do seem to enjoy the attention. Whatever it is,
Attention is crack for a child.
it's like they're soaking it up with a sponge.
Mm-hmm.
Because every time they're on stage, they're just flamboyant and acting their little hearts out.
Yeah,
That's
it
interesting.
seems.
Yeah, because I've never watched enough of Subject D talking or in video to really make an assessment. I just assumed that you've probably seen more of Subject D than I have.
It seems very performative for the most part.
Oh no, go.
Oh no! Oh,
So
it's
true.
so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, TLC is
I
weird.
was
Is
thinking
that
of it for that entire question. I was like, I just need to do this now.
is TLC what Subject D's show is on? Because doesn't Subject D have a show?
I thought that he did have a show, and it wouldn't surprise me if it was on TLC.
I
But
know that's.
I don't watch TV anymore because TV is just garbage. Like
Let's see.
this
Well,
like this stuff.
now
So
Is
they
that what
have
Subject
he
JJ's
has
show
an
is on?
Instagram page at 14. Is his current age.
That's not good. A
Has
14-year-old.
they, them, he, him pronoun.
Yeah,
So
okay,
steadily on
so-
the non-binary.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I don't know if they have.
Is Subject JJ, which I guess we can say the real name, but you probably know who I'm talking about, Kav. Is her show on TLC?
Oh yes.
yeah.
In fact, a new season has come out.
Yeah.
I'll watch a review of that. Apparently, JJ has gained tons of weight.
Oh, yeah.
Just ballooned
Oh,
to a whale.
yes.
Yeah,
Really
that's a
awful. And so young. Still.
Yeah, I mean early 20s, right?
Hormones.
Like 21,
Back
22.
that person up.
Yeah,
Are they
that's
even
a totally
kids?
different subject.
You just found a picture, go.
Yeah.
Oh my
Looks
god.
like
Do you think there's any?
it looks like a fat suit.
Yeah, I know.
Because the face, because the face doesn't look fat at all. But
No,
the rest
it's like
of
a
it-
normal face.
Well, facial surgeries.
oh, that's true.
God.
Scar tissue
Oh, that's
typically
so
doesn't
much worse.
deposit fat cells.
Hmm.
But that's a totally different subject. But do you think there's interplay between that world and the drag kid world?
I wonder.
I'm not so sure. I mean, it's
I think it
very
seems slightly different.
yeah, because the trans kid world is very focused on medicalization, whereas I think the drag kid stuff is a totally different,
Yeah,
albeit
it's almost no medicalization other than maybe diet. I mean, I know even gay men have issues with eating disorder.
men are they're way more at risk for eating disorders than the general population, even teenage
So
girls.
I'm
I think.
guessing
No, less than
even
teenage girls, but
preteens might have some of that. But if
oh,
you have a
okay.
kid in performance, you're trying to push them to perform, probably will control their diet very strictly.
And I think Subject D's mom has a theater background.
Wouldn't
I'm
be
gonna check
shocked.
that out.
I think a lot of it has to do with just being performative.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
a lot of it seems almost entirely performative. And I think a lot of the people who do this are doing it either because their parents are coercing them or because they want to please their parents and because their parents want to live vicariously through them. It's like when parents sign their kids up for soccer or whatever. You know, your stereotypical soccer mom who drives their kids in their SUV drives the kids down to the soccer field, even though the kids don't like playing soccer and would rather be playing Doom on their Xbox or whatever. It's not so much that the kids want to play sports; it's just that the parents feel like there's a sense of failure on their part, so they instead prefer to force the kid or coerce them into doing it, so that they can live through their kids, which frankly is completely fucking pathetic. If I gotta be honest, it's completely pathetic, and parents who do that should be ashamed, because you shouldn't get to control everything your kid does like that. You know, you shouldn't. You should just let your kid do what they want to do as long as it's not, wrong or causing them extreme harm.
I think
I-
what you should do is actually like enroll your kid into a sport, like a team sport, and then get them really psyched, really good at it, and really pressure them, like exercise them daily, practice, 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 and then when they get to like the state championship, you don't show up.
real
Teach them a lesson about
Sigma
life.
male move.
Yeah, because you know what?
Play the long game.
You know what? Gabble's actually touched on something that's pretty interesting because there is an aspect of that within sports, within parents who drive their kids to sports and really, make them hit it hard, hit those weights hard. Now, usually the kid also has an interest in it, like a very strong interest in doing it as well. But yeah, I mean, there's some real like intense sports parents out there
Oh yeah.
that will just crack the whip on their kids, and I mean that's what like Gretzky's dad was like that. Jordan's dad was like that. A lot of the big athletes, that's what their dads were like, just making their kids hit it.
Wasn't Michael Jackson's father like that as well to an extent?
But yeah, Michael Jackson's
Oh,
father,
yeah.
famously like that. Joe
Holy
Jackson
shit.
was famously abusive.
Think-
Michael,
When it comes to
that's another.
drag kids in particular, I think it might even be more complicated. I hear you, Teddy, saying like they're being forced into it. I think maybe it's more complex. I think this might be a case of these kids do sort of enjoy it at some level, but the enjoyment has been shaped. I think these are probably kids who are predisposed to homosexual, let's say.
Right.
They're kids who are predisposed to enjoying attention. They're extroverted. They're dramatic. They're that sort of personality. They like being around people. And the parents just cling to that. They dig their fingers into that and say, okay, we're going to take this to the stage. We're going to do this and that. And they sort of curate their existence from then on out. So I think it is manipulation of a sort. I'm guessing most of these kids expressed the interest first. It wasn't strictly forced on them. It was something that was expressed and then just got steered in a certain way. And then the parents do things like set up interviews with hatchet murderers or
Party monster.
heroin addicts who chop up people. for some
Hey, that only
podcast.
happened once.
It only happened once, to be fair. Or, you set the kid up to hang out with some drag queen who does drugs in front of them. And it's like, you've got these horrible influences around them.
Yeah.
But I think at the root of it, it's something that the kid expressed interest in, and the parent just ran with it.
Yeah.
Because we've all probably known theater kids.
Yes, and
We're
why
just-
they should be beaten relentlessly.
And maybe some
Like-
of us were theater kids.
Some of you were theater
Yes.
kids.
Although I wonder if the speech and debate team is that theater adjacent. I guess
It's
that was most of it I did
performative.
when I was.
Pretty
I
performative.
did take an acting class when I was in high school, and I was in a couple of plays in high school. But
I was
I
in a few
would
plays.
never consider
Yeah,
myself.
see,
a
like
theater
me, I
kid.
would have never done that because I hated attention and I hated being around people.
I think I played a tree stump in a school play once.
Oh my god.
Did you have a
I gotta tell a
monologue?
quick story.
I'm a tree stump.
No, actually, no, it wasn't just me. We were two boys, who shared the part of the tree stump.
Oh.
That's actually even worse now that I think about it.
That's cute.
So you weren't even good enough to play the tree by yourself. They had to get an assistant.
Well, no, I couldn't read the lines. I'm massively dyslexic.
Oh.
You're like, what are words? I'm a tree. I can't read.
Go back. Go back a little bit more. Go all the way to the back. Behind the curtain. Go on.
Keep going. You have a story?
Go home.
Daniel?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it has nothing to do with the topic. It's just kind of a fun story, so I don't know. But we went to a community theater production of Wizard of Oz, and it's all adults that are playing the parts and everything. And there were people that were playing the trees, but there was one woman that really wanted to let you know that she was fucking nailing being a tree. And she was vibing and waving and kind of like dancing in the back and doing like weird movements while everybody else is just playing it like totally like they're trees. They're just going to stand there still. But there's that one woman, that one.
She's like,
soccer
I am
mom
a
woman
theater
that's just
major.
fucking vibing.
And I'm going to
Yeah.
let you know.
It was so good.
Theater.
I loved it. But yeah, I mean, it's with the psychology behind the parents that are really allowing their children to do this and possibly reinforcing it and feeding into it and latching onto it. I mean, I'm interested to see what happens when subject D grows up and is an adult. I wonder if that very close relationship with mom will continue being that close.
Yeah. Hard to know. And like I said, it's such a new concept.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally experimental. It's this part of this they be culture. We're going to raise our kids non-binary. See how that turns out. I don't know. It might turn out okay.
Turn out well.
But there's a real possibility your kid could grow up messed up.
So are we placing bets then?
Yeah, you're just
mine
kind
is
of
on,
gambling on your kid's life.
27.
Seems messed up to me.
What's the over/under on MDMA overdose? What do you guys say?
Well, if they've already been exposed to ketamine.
Do kids even take, or do kids? Do people even take MDMA anymore?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's still around?
I mean, I would imagine.
Oh dear. Maybe you're on it right now. Did you?
Yeah.
Are you rolling?
Robot MDMA.
Yeah, I mean ecstasy. Yeah, it's nice to see ecstasy still around. Some things never change,
Yeah, I think just like weed and ecstasy and alcohol are just good. Like they've just ingrained themselves into the culture.
That's where Suicide Mondays come from. Because after you're rolling all weekend, you get home on Monday and you're an emotional crash. That's what ecstasy does, man. Not that I would know.
I just hope
would
they don't
know.
go on heroin. I don't know.
Yeah, heroin's
Well,
the thing.
I will say this: if you think you're taking ecstasy and you accidentally take meth, you may end up with really great debating skills.
That's true. You can debate at double speed, buddy.
Just ask Destiny.
That poor man.
What?
You've heard about Destiny going on meth.
No.
He
What?
thought
Okay,
he was
I have
taking ecstasy.
He thought he was taking ecstasy. Turns
Hey, I'm
out
gonna take a quick
the guy sold him meth.
That's a very different
This
experience.
is
isn't it?
is directly before a debate he had scheduled. So he
Okay.
canceled the debate because he's like, I've been up all night. I'm freaking
Okay,
out.
I'm gonna post this.
The chat
and
logs
I
are
want you
so
to
funny.
imagine. Okay, I'm gonna post this picture, and while you're reading it, I want you to imagine that Eminem's "Lose Yourself" is gonna start playing.
Oh my god. Yeah.
I'm only reading this in his voice though. Like, you know how he normally talks super quickly, right?
How long does that
Where he's
How
just
does-
like,
How does Destiny sound on meth?
holy fuck!
Dude, you get an insane amount of work done on this shit.
It's like the apex hobo right there. It's Destiny on meth.
It's like
He could debate
like,
with 20 people on the meth.
like Charlie. It's like if Charlie Manson was being asked to participate in a debate.
Well, I've always said I want a
meth
debate
types through the
between
whole URL.
I want a debate between Destiny, Ben Shapiro. Who's the third one? There's a third guy who talks really fast. I want them all on meth, and I want them to debate.
And I want it to be moderated by Mark Richards. Your Honor, I'd like.
Listen to all this oral havoc.
We're gonna read some super chats now. First one comes to us from
Milwaukee.
I would love to see Mark Richards. I would have loved to see this entire Rittenhouse trial with Mark Richards like on meth. I feel like
he needed a bump.
I don't know. I feel like if he were on drugs, he would be objecting a lot more strenuously.
Could you imagine if it was just slightly louder because he was on the meth?
It doesn't make him talk faster, just makes him slightly louder.
Like the Midwest, like just takes over. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much meth you've had.
He pronounces A's normally.
Like he just walks over, reaches for the gun. I'm gonna Alec Baldwin Mr. Binger over here.
All right, should we get back on track?
Yeah.
I think
we have one more question, right?
Last question. Yeah, so I think this will be a shorter stream. That's probably best for everyone's sanity after 3-hour stream on bestiality.
Oh, and then the neo-pronoun stream.
Yeah.
But is LGBT culture responsible for this? And if so, if you think that's true, how culpable? I think.
I would hesitate.
Now, hang on. What do you mean by responsible? Do you mean that they need to take responsibility for it, or do you mean that they cause it? Okay.
That's kind of a difficult question, honestly, at first glance, at least, because I guess you have to think about what exactly you mean by LGBT culture. It's like, it's not a uniform thing, right? Although I think the word culture has sort of gotten watered down and bastardized a little bit, but at the same time, it's not LGBT culture is not a coherent, unified thing. It's just a group of subcultures and niches that were just sort of grouped by, I guess, anthropologists as a culture of sorts. I guess calling it a single culture is sort of a working.
I wouldn't say anthropologists. I'd say activists.
Activists probably be better, because I'm talking about it as a descriptive sense.
Yeah.
I think you're right. If I narrowed it down to recent LGBT culture, the last 5 years.
Like contemporary.
The latest wave, even.
In that very limited sense, I could say probably a little bit.
I mean, I'd say after marriage was one is when this, and I don't even call it culture, or I think it's ideology. I think it's more accurate to call it LGBT ideology.
Yeah, because I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, wrapped up in it is like an ideal behind like collectivization of like non-heterosexual things, and it's all about banding together, and an attack on one is an attack on all of us, and it's very much a political ideological label that I think is totally divorced from what being gay is or being a lesbian is. I think it has nothing to do with that. I think it's it uses those identities, but I think it's very much an ideological thing.
I think borrows heavily from Antonio Gramsci's idea of hegemony. Gramsci was early 20th century was called a neo-Marxist.
Oh,
And-
James Lindsay told me all about him, Tenny.
Oh boy.
Don't get him started on James Lindsay.
I'm not
We'll
going
be here
to
5
rant about
hours.
James Lindsay. Not today.
You gotta,
Not today,
Tenny,
Satan. I'm
you
not.
gotta start a YouTube channel.
I'm not going to spend our precious time right now, ranting about James fucking Lindsay. But I will elaborate a little bit on what I want on this point, because I think it's very central, not just to, I guess, what in academia is called like LGBT studies, but also broader cultural studies. Because I think this idea borrows heavily from Antonio Gramsci's concept of hegemony. See, Gramsci was what's called a neo-Marxist, and his interpretation of Marxism sort of moved away from being a purely economic and social theory, like it was like Orthodox Marxism, and it moved towards this idea of Marxism in terms of culture, a Marxist analysis of culture. And Gramsci believed that the bourgeoisie had what was called cultural hegemony. They sort of what people thought of as common sense and common knowledge and common values were actually just bourgeois values that had sort of conditioned all of the other classes into believing that it was their own values. And so for Gramsci, it was important that the revolution and the proletariat sort of not just overthrow the bourgeois in an economic and a social and political sense, but also in a cultural sense. And so the idea was that you needed to create a new sort of workers, a new culture to overpower the hegemony.
Sounds
the
very
bourgeois. And I think there's a
cathedral
very,
to me.
very,
It's
very
a agenda.
similar idea of, well, we have to. I guess you could transplant it onto this idea of sexual identities, which is like a very American thing, or rather, very Anglophone thing. I've never heard, say, European academic socialists and so on talk about it like this. At least not to this
Gramsci was
extent.
Italian, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he wasn't talking about it in a sexual identity sort of sense.
It's weird
He was
because
just
all
talking about
Italians
it
are
in a-
gay.
That's that's a
Ciao.
fact. But it comes over to the U.S. and into the hands of cultural theorists and cultural scholars who are arguing that the same reasoning can be applied to gay people, to LGBT people. And this idea of there's straight or heteronormative cultural hegemony that needs to be thrown off. And I think that's where a lot of this ideology stems from, as far as, quote unquote LGBT culture. And I think it's, to an extent, kind of inorganic. It's not
Oh, incredibly
bottom
organic.
up. It's
Oh,
something
yeah.
that was sort of systematized and to an extent cooked up by ivory tower academics. And it's not very organic at all. Although with the internet, I think we're starting to see more pushback against top-down notions of hegemony as information becomes more freely disseminated. So I
Mhm.
think in the near future, we're probably going to see a much more authentic sort of culture spring up in place of old meta narratives like Marxism. And
Look, I
so,
hope you're right.
yeah,
Well, Danimal, I know you had a lot of thoughts about this concept.
You know what, Gavels? Why don't you talk first, then while I collect my thoughts?
Isn't it kind of strange how this like corporate type of LGBT culture has gotten really stale and weird? Not in a weird in like a gay sense, like Freddie Mercury, David Bowie, all of these sort of things. But it's weird and like it's not even attached to it. Like it has nothing to do with like the history or anything with it. Like it's just this strange kind of extremely low resolution image of a corporate gay person. I don't really I'm just not getting it.
think your point is
Like, it used to
interesting.
be, like, really extravagant and strange, but now it's just, well, it's a drag queen on a pride parade.
I think that's an interesting point. I know this YouTuber I watch who her video about Subject D got taken down by YouTube.
Hmm.
In that video, before it got deleted, part of her argument was this whole drag kid thing is an attempt by parents to raise children into a culture that is brand new. So it's not
Yeah.
rooted in anything. It doesn't have an exceptionally long history. Like most cultures develop over hundreds, if not thousands of years, very slowly,
Hmm.
sort of organically. And these parents sort of say, you know, we have this new like subculture. It doesn't have a lot of content exactly, but we're going to dye our kids' hair and we're going to put them in wigs and have these sorts of values transposed onto them that aren't well developed and aren't practiced at a large scale. And it's highly experimental. So that makes
I wouldn't say
me
it's super experimental because it's very monochromatic in a way. Like it's just
Very
these
limiting.
like yeah, it's very limiting because you only have like these very set things that you can do that is gay culture.
I see.
Yeah, it's funny. The LGBT ideology, while it, I mean, we talked about all the neo-pronouns last time and how infinite it is in that realm. It is incredibly restrictive. You have
Oh
to
yeah.
think a certain way. You'd have to believe certain things. It's very uncritical of itself and very permissive of everything within itself. I think it's incredibly irresponsible of an ideology.
And it
I mean,
takes
if it
itself
allows things like
extremely
this,
seriously.
Yeah.
yeah,
There's no
Th-
humor allowed.
No.
no, not at all. I mean, hey, who was the one comedian that was going after Dave Chappelle? Comedian in quotes.
A
Hannah,
lesbian
whatever.
lady? Gatsby?
Yeah, Hannah Gatsby. I mean, have you listened to any of her quote unquote
Haven't.
stand up?
I've heard it's miserable.
It is miserable. It's completely humorless. I mean, that's completely antithetical to anything that I would think of as like quote unquote gay culture. There's just being completely humorless. Like that's never been a part of it.
I read a Twitter thread of somebody watching it the first time. They're like, "Oh, this isn't so bad. This is okay." And then by the third tweet, they're like, "Oh God, make it stop. I regret everything. I can't watch anymore."
But yeah, I mean, it is complete ideology. I think.
Yeah,
Like I
because
said, I think
corporations
it's
prop that up. There's an article like, "Why does comedy need to be funny?"
Well, no, not
Okay.
just that. I mean, I'm talking about LGBT ideology just in of itself. Like it's so divorced. I can't believe that gay people in America are like behind it 100. Well, some are behind it 100% because it's so alien and antithetical to what kind of being a gay person in America is and like it's not this weirdness, this like complete degradation. I mean, like the type of people that I see pushing the ideology are like the Kingsters. I love hearkening to that video, the first one, but it's like the Kingsters from that first video. And like my husband and I were talking about it the other day. Like it's so awkward whenever anybody just spills that acronym out and they have to like choke out all those letters, and it's just like restricting you to a letter in an acronym. Like it feels icky. It feels gross to like be labeled that or it be considered part of that collective group. Like I don't like that. I don't like being reduced to a letter, to just a single letter. Like I'm so much more than just a fucking letter. It's so reductive. I hate it. I hate everything about it.
Self-hating gay.
Yeah, I know. I better read Velvet
Yes.
Rage.
Oh, very. Your favorite book?
My favorite book I keep getting recommended by gays that don't like what I say.
Velvet Rage seems like a euphemism for that time of the month.
I think you made that joke
I
last time.
think you did make that joke last time. It's still a good joke. Still good.
I mean,
menstruation.
It writes itself. It
Right
writes
there.
itself.
How are you gonna not say it?
It's just, I don't like it. I think it's created this atmosphere where it's entirely irresponsible because it's generating things like drag kids. I mean, we just talked for, I don't know, about an hour maybe about how disgusting it is. And like, we're like, this shouldn't be anywhere near kids. This is adult. But because of this ideology that's completely permissive and uncritical about anything that could be labeled with the acronym, I mean, that's allowed. And like, how can you allow this? How can you not be critical of this? How can you be defending this? It's so outside the, not only just normalcy in society, but it's just so outside of moral norms. It's so outside of just what we know about like what's good for a child. Like sexual themes for a child are no good. That's really bad. That's really psychologically damaging, or damaging. Is what I meant to say. And I mean, and there's so many studies to support that. I mean, there's decades of child psychology to support that. And like, why are you so permissive of this abuse?
Yeah, I think
Disgusting.
to me, I think there's probably two things going on. It's like a two-prong problem. It's the geek social fallacy, and it's the dragon chasing.
What's the geek social fallacy?
So the geek social fallacy, well, there's actually a number of them, but one of the geek social fallacies is because you're persecuted, persecuting anyone else is evil. So everything is permissible. Even if someone in your group does like shady or creepy things, you just accept it because, well, people treated us like crap, so we shouldn't treat them like crap. Until you find out that person is genuinely a bad person. So this is a dynamic that often happens with geeks because, you're all kind of nerds, you're used to being bullied. You have that nerd come in who's kind of weird, and you just accept him because that's what you think friendship is. You just accept people, their face, without judgment. When in reality, judgment is sometimes necessary, and sometimes it's necessary to kick people out. They've sort of painted themselves into a corner of everyone's acceptable, everyone's valid. And the other thing is like the chasing dragons, which is, you slay the one dragon, you got gay marriage through. Well, now what are you going to do? What's the next big thing? You just keep searching you want that energy to stay. You want the mystique of fighting this uphill societal battle, but you have fewer and fewer battles that are worth fighting for.
Anyway,
what video should we watch to round this out?
We're gonna take your children.
Gonna take your children.
That's like one of the old, like, I barely ever tweet, and that was when I spent like 2 hours on Twitter just responding to every single.
I'll play it on my end.
Well, did we finish talking about is LGBT culture responsible for this? Because I think a lot of people lay this kind of stuff at the feet of just homosexuality or being gay in general. And do you think that's partly correct, Kav? What's your feelings on that? Or what's everybody's feelings on that?
I'm divided on it because I think drag in general is a gay subculture. I think you could accurately say.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, it didn't start with gay men, but it's definitely been catapulted by gay men.
But is it the trans ideology that sort of pushed children into it? Or at least the idea that parents should allow their children into this world. Like, it's all okay,
Yeah, created the permissibility around this being okay.
Because trans kids started becoming an acceptable thing probably around the same time, I'd say.
Yeah.
I think on the parent side, the pathology is pretty close. I think the kids themselves are quite different from trans kids. But the parental pathology of feeding off the attention, wanting praise, wanting societal celebration of how they parent. That all seems pretty similar to me. So maybe it's more about media.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's definitely a social media thing.
Yes, actually, I think that social media, well, social media for one thing tends to exaggerate and emphasize certain aspects of a person's personality or character and sort of flanderize them. So, and of course, people on social media can create and curate what they interact with. You know, you can like this person's tweet, you can block that person's account, you can retweet. You used to be able to reblog before Tumblr died. You can share and like and subscribe and comment and all the things, and that allows you to sort of create a web of, I guess, a web of illusions in a sense, where you're not really seeing the full picture. You're only seeing what you allow yourself to see, and I think that can be very problematic for how a person interprets reality. For instance, if say you have a teenage girl who has an iPhone and she goes on Instagram and looks at all these photoshopped images of girls and women about her age who have fantastic bodies or are super thin or are considered sexy, she's going to get a very warped idea of what people are like and how her body ought to look, and so she's going to start starving herself or doing some other horrible things so that she can live up to those impossible standards. And I think the same is true for especially LGBT people.
So was it like gay marriage basically all caused this? Like the aftermath? No,
I think it's
not
the
like gay marriage caused it, but like the people who were still in the movement after gay marriage
Oh
were
yeah.
like, well, let's keep this
Think
going.
Yeah, well, the
Think-
people
yeah.
and the organizations who realized that after same-sex marriage was legal in the United States, because America is the only part of the world that matters, they realized they had very little to continue fighting for, aside from just encouraging people to be tolerant. And apparently that was good enough,
I
in a
think
sense.
that's the
So,
inevitable outcome, though, of people that have spent their entire lives in a rights movement like that. Because there have been people that have been in it since the '60s. You know,
Hmm.
if they survive the '80s.
the
Maybe it's kind of the
Jesus.
maybe it's
Let's be
kind of the
honest here.
downfall of having a
It's true, but
progressive ideology. Because
Not necessarily the downfall of having a progressive ideology, but
with the downside, maybe
a
I should say.
I think it's
not
a negative consequence because, like, you can say you're progressive, but progression implies you have a goal, something you're moving towards. Like, you
no.
can't really progress away from something. You can only progress
Well, I think if you
towards
have a
an end
progressive
goal.
mindset, it's really hard to decide how far is enough.
I think it's
Yeah,
it's an outcome of a cultural phenomenon, like something like, say, segregation or racially based laws, or the type of laws that gay people in America had to deal with, where their activity was made illegal or things like that. And when you have a group like that in society, where you are setting them apart and making them second class citizens in that respect, when when you're coming out of that, which we're coming out of that very recently, you're going to see this type of effect, this kind of rubber banding effect, I think, with people that have been through that. And I think that that's kind of a very modern phenomenon that wasn't calculated or wasn't considered or wasn't thought about in terms of these type of rights movements. So part of it is just the way the culture was. I think that a lot of people that are in the LGBT ideology were driven to that, and it's controlled by such a small group because of the conversation around it in America, where there was one side that was completely against anything that had to do with gay people. It needs to remain illegal. They shouldn't be allowed in public. They should be jailed. Um, and it wasn't that much better on the other side. But then there was a small group that got glommed onto that kind of grew and grew and grew. And as that social shift was happening, you had the opposition party staying with their old line and not shifting with the sort of public, with the Overton window shifting, with the public attitude shifting towards it. And they were still very much against it. And they became an outside pariah. I mean, that's what conservatives are now, really. I mean, it's in the mainstream, they're really considered a pariah to be a conservative. And I think that's part of the result of them sort of wanting to continue cruelty in terms of how the public perceived it and being very staunchly in favor of that. And that's kind of the price they paid, is not being part of the public discourse. So I think that's another thing that wasn't really considered, is that, you're losing a major guiding voice by kind of casting them out for those kinds of opinions, which, I mean, they did it themselves as well. But I don't know. I'm kind of rambling, but you kind of get what I mean.
I do.
Yeah, no, I do.
Yep.
Does
I
it
get
seem
what
to
you mean.
be, and this kind of relates to the other question about drag being an ambassador to children, to sort of communicate these ideas to children.
Hmm.
And I think in some sense, this whole trend of not just drag kids, but other elements seem to be tied into this new movement's desire to connect with children in particular. They really want in on the kids so that they can get these ideas into them early. And they really do. Like, I'm in education and I have seen it for myself. Kinds of propaganda and the kinds of activities that happen very early, elementary school, with teachers handing out worksheets, trying to get kids' gender or whatever.
Yeah, was it's mostly slanted towards is gender and not necessarily like gay, that kind of stuff?
Weirdly enough, I think it is now more about gender.
Yeah.
Like gender expression. I mean, we had that whole workshop day just on gender pronouns. So it's even, it's almost like it's leaped over the whole gay issue, and now it's into the next, it's 2.0.
Yeah, was that an issue in schools? Is the gay? I don't remember ever like seeing any news stories about it, like I see with the gender.
I mean, we've had trainings here and there about it. I don't remember in-person trainings on it, or
really,
just, videos
was
you
it
have to watch.
Was it how to use like a cattle prod or a taser to make sure that
yes, to zap the gay out of them? Yes.
Yeah, you have to. Well,
you ever
you
show
have to,
gay propensities, you just zap.
Yeah, I remember going to health class. We were talking about human reproduction, and there was a cattle prod, little electric cattle prod, always at the back. And the teacher, anytime she saw, two classmates of the same sex sitting a little too close to each other, you would just reach for the cattle prod and they'd be straighten up, literally.
Nope.
Yeah,
I mean, I know, wasn't that long ago that teachers would have not just rainbow flags, but little placards that say this is a safe space for gay and lesbian students or whatever, and now it's all gender, all trans stuff.
That's interesting.
Sort of been absorbed. So maybe that's the next thing that's happening, and for heck's sake, subject D is now apparently going by they, them pronouns, at least primarily. So it seems like that's the trajectory. You get them all confused about what gender means. You have them dress up clothing and tell them that clothing is this or that. That's kind of where the situation goes.
I think a lot of gay people are waking up and saying, like, what does this have to do with me? Like all this gender LGBT crap.
It's like Night Owl and the comedian and Watchmen. What happened? What happened to the LGBT dream?
You're looking at it.
Came through. Came true. Oh God.
I think that's not entirely out of place.
So, Cobb, you're agreed we should all go back in the closet and stop being gay.
Probably.
We
Um,
For the
should
children.
just keep
for the sake of the children.
for the sake of the children. We'll keep it on the down low.
Yeah, I think I don't know. When do you think this LGBT ideology is going to burn out? Because it's not going to stick around forever. I
Some
mean,
of
as
it's
soon as
so
the first
incomprehensible and so contradictory, it's going to have to fall apart at some point.
I think it's already starting to burn out a little bit as
Oh,
people are. I think there are some people that are going to take it to its extreme, right? That's what you get with every ideology. Then there's going to be the majority of people who maybe they glom onto it, but eventually they get disenchanted and they sell out, as it were. And then you got the people who were just using it as a scam the entire time, and once they realize the grift is up, once that delicious grift has dried up, they'll just find something else to con people with.
You think of what happened to hippies, right?
Yes.
They got old, and some of them kind of stayed hippie-ish, and then they had conservative kids who rebelled against them. Or
And
you
then
had
they became
or you had the hippies who grew older and became like super conservative because they looked back on their life and said, "No,
yeah.
No,
It's
I'm not
like
having
they
my
became
kids.
super hard asses who gave birth to the yuppies.
Yeah.
You know, the people who went from the people who started the no pain, no gain thing, you know?
I can only imagine a kid
Yeah.
of some adult who spends most of their life fretting about pronouns, just going like, you know what, screw this. I'm gonna go hang out with these people who don't ask me what my pronouns are."
Yeah.
Oh my god, Patrick Bateman. They, them.
He's got his pronouns on his card right there.
I don't think I used to be worried about the LGBT ideology causing a huge backlash against gay people and like how that would impact my life in the future in terms of, if maybe some protections get rolled back. But I'm not so worried about that anymore, honestly. I used to fret about it, but just kind of seeing the way that people, like normal people that aren't terminally online, and kind of talk about it, and they're like, yeah, this isn't what gay is. This is just some weird lefty bullshit. I don't know. I kind of have a little bit of hope.
I think
Maybe
you're
not
right,
too
and I
much.
think
Let's all nibble the white pill.
gay
Yeah.
people have been
I just-
probably encountering more alliance than they expected from certain wings
What do you
of
mean?
the conservative world,
Yeah,
because they're both
Yeah.
looking at the gender question in different ways, but to the same conclusion, which is this makes no sense.
I think that's so. It was kind of getting to my rambly point earlier, where I was talking about how conservatives kind of paid the price for kind of doing what they were doing. But now that they're kind of being like, you know what, the gay question's settled, whatever, we're done with it. I think that's so good for gay Americans, honestly, because like you're seeing way lesser of the extremes that you would see in the gay community in terms of like, we were talking about AIDS
Yeah.
a few podcasts ago, and you're seeing way less transmission rates. You're seeing a increase in monogamous relationships, and I think that's a lot of that's conservative influence. That it's okay to think conservatively if you're a gay man now.
It's strange that we call it conservative, but really, to an extent, it was just common sense.
Yeah, that too.
Because it's common sense that you either don't have sex all the time or you have safe sex. That's just common sense. If you don't want an STD, you don't want to spread STDs, and so on. But
Plus, just the wider acceptance of community in general just makes it so that that gay people don't all coalesce around one single urban area and are shunned by society. I mean, they can stay in their little town and be part of their town culture and just be also gay, but also I'm a town member here. I'm part of this community. That LGBT super San Francisco gay community. Like, what is that? That's foreign. That's alien. I think that's healthy too.
Gabbles, your thoughts,
What?
your deep thoughts.
Communists ruin everything.
They sure do.
I don't think it's normies ruin everything anymore. I think communists ruin everything. communists ruin ideologies or causes, even. I think they
You're
really
saying
took
all these
over.
drag kids are
warped it.
communists.
I think their parents are basically like closet communists, like these kind of weirdo progressives that just want to make everything equal.
Well, I think we're good on the podcast.
Yeah.
I think we gave our concluding statements. Do we want to
I
give
think
any
so.
kind of funny parting wisdom or anything like that?
I'm not sure what I would say as far as wisdom goes, but drag kids, cringe. Don't do it. Just say no. Like Nancy Reagan. It's not good. 0 out of 10. Shit tier meme. Cringe, and blue pilled. And
Big bra moment.
Massive bra moment. Yes, we don't like drag kids. I think that we all agree, right? Drag kids. Yeah, drag kids are an American tradition. They're not a proud one.
They feel very French. I don't know if you want to put American.
Yeah.
French import.
I haven't seen any evidence of it, but it just feels French.
I mean, you
anything,
guys are basically
anything pedophilic feels
founded
a
by
little
the French.
Yeah.
See, that's just one more reason to add to the pile of reasons why we should nuke France.
I think that's what Joseph Rosenbaum got convicted of. He got convicted of 4 counts of child abuse and 1 account of acting French.
That's just
those are the same thing.
Exactly.
Double jeopardy.
I know how to shoot a pedophile, Your Honor.
I know how to shoot a pedophile. But yeah, okay. So I think what you are shouldn't be who you are. And you should just do your own thing. Unless your thing is forcing your child to dress drag and dance in front of men, then you should be put in jail.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Mm-hmm.
That's me.
So
good. Gabbles?
Yeah, no, I think these kind of parents should be put like in a big boat with a lot of holes in it and then put in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
I don't think cross-dressing as a form of play is damaging, but obviously putting a child, cross-dressing them, dressing them in a lot of makeup, then putting them in front of a bunch of men and doing sexual dances, like that's just, it's a road too far, man. I don't know why anyone would applaud that and say that's brave, that's great, it's progressive. I'm not sure where their minds are at.
It's not even fun if your parents think it's okay.
It's true.
Yeah, what the hell?
I've heard.
So I can only hope they turn out okay in the end, but it seems it's almost like they're introducing them to the worst parts of the culture early on.
Oh god, yeah.
Like, here's all the drug addicts, sweetie.
It's just like the mother bird kicking the chicklet out the nest,
Have fun with your
Into a
you
bowl
gotta-
of
friends.
ketamine.
Chuckling about going to a nightclub, all the gross things that happen there. I
Aim for the pile of ketamine.
think we're done. So I think we can do a bye, boys. Goodbye, boys.
does it for this episode.
Goodbye, boys.
I think so.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
So long, farewell.